Does the Bible give us a physical description of Yahshua the Messiah? Well, actually it does. In two places it gives us a description. Maybe more than that, and you could tell me where they are. I know of two, one in Daniel and one in Revelation. We're going to take a look at them. First, let's talk about, is it even important to know what he looks like? It's there. It's in the Bible twice, so it's probably somewhat important. Of course, we know there isn't a lot of stress on physical appearance. It's just the opposite, because even when he appeared a few days after his resurrection, or a day after his resurrection, he appeared to Peter and one of the other apostles, I think John, on the road to Emmaus or Emmaus. They were walking along and he appears. They didn't even know who he was. So obviously he wasn't, it wasn't because they were, his appearance was the same, and because if it were still this, if he still had the same physical appearance of Yeshua, they would have recognized him. Be that he were healed and he looked completely normal before his beating and crucifixion, or after. Either way, they would have recognized him. And some people say, well, he was so beaten up they wouldn't have recognized him. But they would have, I think they would have been overwhelmed walking with this guy who was completely, his body was trashed. It says that the beating from the crucifixion was worse than any possible thing. So they would have still known something if his whole face was swollen and all of his bones were showing. Obviously, he had a whole different appearance, because appearance really isn't that important. It's what's on the inside. It's your words. It's what you say, what you do. Who knows what our spirit bodies are going to look like, you know, from that point of view when we're turned to spirit in the future. Who knows what kind of appearance our existence will have. We're going to be spirit. And he did that a few times. He appeared to them a few times, and each time they couldn't recognize him at first until he started to speak, and it was by his words that they recognized him. Nevertheless, let's take a look at the two times where it says that in Daniel 10, in verse 5, it talks about Daniel, when he saw him, he had a vision. A lot of people look over this and they think maybe it's talking about an angel or something else, but let's take a look and compare it then to Revelation. So first we're in Daniel 10 and verse 5. It says, I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose waist was girded with gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like torches of fire, his arms and feet like burnished bronze in color, and the sound of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men who were with me did not see the vision, but a great terror fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore, I was left alone when I saw the great vision, and no strength remained in me, for my vigor was turned to frailty in me, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard the sound of his words, I was in a deep sleep, on my face, with my face to the ground. Okay, Revelation chapter 1 and verse 12. Let's see the similarities and see if it's speaking about the same being. Revelation 1:12, Then I turned to see the voice that spoke with me, and having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the feet, and girded about the chest with a golden band. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire. His feet were like fine brass, as if refined in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. He had in his right hand 7 stars. Out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was like the sun shining in its strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. But he laid his right hand on me, saying to me, Do not be afraid, I am the first and the last. I am he who lives and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And I have the keys of Hades and of death. Write the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which will take place after this. So we see the description, even the response of both John and Daniel was to fall on their face like they were dead, and then Yeshua had to touch them to give them strength so they could stand back up and stand in his presence, because it was overwhelming. So it's interesting. So we have these, the biblical image of what he's going to look like. His face is so bright, it's like lightning or the sun. You can barely look at it. His hair is white. His eyes are like fire. His arms and his legs and feet are like shiny bronze and brass. And he's wearing a garment that covers from his chest all the way down to his feet. And he has a golden band around him. And one it says around his waist and the other around his chest. Maybe it's a very wide golden band that goes all the way around him. It's interesting though. Of course, his words are the most important thing, and that we do them, not just know them. We have to actually do what his words say, because he says that many in those days when he comes will say, Master, Master, I did this in your name, or I did that in your name. And he's going to say, get away, I never even knew you. So let's get out there. Let's do what he says to do. Let's help the poor, the widow, the orphan. Let's make a difference, not just with our words, but what we do, how we live. Don't be controlled by your church. Read the Bible from cover to cover. Know what it says and let it move you. Let the Holy Spirit move you. If you're not baptized, you need to repent of your sins and change your life and be baptized in the name of Yahshua HaMashiach, Yahshua the Messiah, and the Father and the Holy Spirit.